Let's get going. Now let's put some fire in this rocket. Release. Good handle.
For going to space, the main things that happen to people are there's an adaptation phase that happens right away when you get up to space. The components of that are some motion disturbances that can lead to basically a kind of motion sickness in some people. And then the other factor is after that, or the process that your body undergoes to adapt to this new environment that doesn't have gravity in it.
Lots of cheering here in the room, big hugs. Sunny William coming through in her blue flight suit.
And followed shortly behind by Commander of Starliner, Butch Wilmore, now back on the space station, the third visit for both astronauts and the first crewed flight test of the Starliner spacecraft.
In those areas where the bones support those large muscle groups, like in the hips and the low back and the legs, what we measure is reabsorption of the calcium in the bone in those areas. So that's one of the reasons why exercise is such a big component of any crew day on all the missions that we fly, because as soon as you enter that weightlessness environment, your body starts being responsive to that, and those the calcium loss and the strength loss and the loss in the ability to work, called aerobic capacity, those all start decreasing if you don't do anything to counteract it. We kind of view exercise as a great big pill that we have the crew take to counteract all these adaptations that I mentioned, and so that's also a very big that'd be, to me, one of the big three preventative things that we have in place. The crew get to or they can exercise obviously 7 days a week, and they have on their calendar at least 6 days a week of exercise that in total lasts about 2.5 hours a day. So it's a great opportunity for them to maintain their fitness, benefit from some of the sort of disconnecting from the work part of the mission and things like that. Radiation has a number of effects on cells, but basically you're worried about it, depending on the kind of dose, breaking down the way the cells work and potentially introducing breaks and changes into the proteins and the DNA that's within the cell. So the good news is that we monitor this very closely, and we have the crew will wear basically a radiation dosimeter throughout each mission, and so we'll be able to understand more clearly the amount of radiation that they received. And we have some fairly defined and strict levels for the crew. We don't ever want them to get substantial amounts of radiation such that it substantially increases risks of concerning things like development of cancers and stuff like that. And we also do some other things. We have them periodically do a battery of cognitive tests to see if we can measure any kind of change in their reaction time and performance and things like that while they're out on mission. I would say, I've worked with the agency for around 24 years now, and when we send people out on these missions that can last over a year sometimes, the things that happen in everyday life continue to happen in everyday life. So, for example, we've had crew on orbit when their wives have had children or they've had family members pass away. And so there's a lot of work that goes into making sure that there's ways that we can touch base with them and see how they're processing all that, and as well as the stress of all the work and mission.
Welcome to the International Space Station as we get ready for the Christmas holidays. It's a great time of year up here. We get to spend it with all of our family up on the International Space Station. There's 7 of us up here, and so we're going to get to enjoy company together.
We have a plan for, we call it a reconditioning plan. And I described a little bit about how when crew go into space, their body adapts to being in space. Well, they kind of have to do the same thing, but in reverse. They have to readapt to being back on the ground. And so that involves, there'll be a landing recovery team. The medical team is part of that. And so we'll go out to the landing site and help get the crew off the vehicle and bring them back here to Houston. And then once they're back here, there's basically a 45-day period of fairly intensive reconditioning. We do some amount of medical testing, and we also the crew also participate in scientific studies, and we support all those things. And most of that happens in the first 45 days of their return. We like that, and in that. The other main thing that they're doing then is we have some strength and conditioning coaches that they are paired with throughout the mission, and we spend a lot of time, again, several hours a day during that period, getting them back to getting their bodies and back to the baseline that they were at before they left.
Классно выглядит. Подождите секунду. Валера, отойди оттуда.
And the body systems, most of them recover back to their baseline in that 45-day period. The one that takes a little bit longer is the the bone and reabsorbing calcium that may have been lost. That can take onwards of a year, maybe a little bit longer sometimes, to regain the total amount of calcium back that might have been shed while they were in space.
Let's go forward into Starliner, where there was a little bit of action the other day. So I'm going to lead you down through the PMA 2 into Starliner. All right, going in through the IDA, the docking adapter, and then into the spacecraft. Here we are. Looks like a lot of bags because there's a lot of packing, and also this big orange thing, which is our ventilation that we get from the space station while we are docked to the space station.
We've been, from my perspective, the medical perspective and the exercise, we've been treating them like they're long-duration crew members basically since almost the start of their time in space. And so for these reasons, I feel like they've put in the work in terms of the exercise countermeasure system and other things, so that we can be confident that when they return, they're going to be very similar to the other long duration crew that have had stays in orbit.
But like every day is fun. Every day we get to do all sorts of stuff. Maybe you would call it games, maybe you would call it work. But you know, just being in space is a lot of fun. You can look at things a lot differently when you're up in space. I'm gonna float away.
And we'll continue to monitor crew after each mission, and then if they're willing to come back and see the medical group after their careers at NASA are over, we do monitor their health throughout their careers and their life to kind of make sure that the numbers that we've set and the thresholds that have been set are actually doing the protective thing that we believe they will.